Alright, so tech giants are quietly dropping $500,000 bribes just on individual influencers to convince them that their artificial intelligence models aren't already failing. Wall Street has bet our entire $251 trillion global economy all on an AI productivity miracle to save us from industrial collapse. But the underlying math just hit a brick wall. Instead of automated luxury, we're getting an internet that's choked by algorithmic slop and a monetized loneliness epidemic that is actively destroying humanity. And the threat to our generation isn't that Skynet wakes up and launches all the nukes. The terrifying reality is that AI is simply going to stall, leaving us holding the bag for the greatest financial and cultural implosion in modern history. A century ago, the poet T.S. Eliot looked at the wreckage of the First World War and warned us how it all ends. Not with a bang, but a whimper. Let's talk about the illusion of progress. Let's talk about the absolute dumpster fire that is our current information ecosystem. Because 25 years ago, the internet was heralded as the ultimate democratizing force for human knowledge. Today, it's undergoing rapid, systematic decay. Academics politely call it enshitification. Subcultures call it the dead internet theory. I just call it a fucking tragedy. Because at the peak of this supposed AI renaissance, what are we actually getting for the billions and billions of dollars and gigawatts of electricity being burned? Well, we're getting the mass production of low-effort, synthetic garbage. AI slop. Look at your social media feeds. Look at Facebook. It's a wasteland of bizarre AI-generated images of shrimp Jesus, hyper-masculine toddlers building motorcycles out of plastic bottles, and fake airplane attendants posing in physically impossible airplane aisles. And in the comments, there's thousands of dead-eyed bots and deeply confused boomers commenting, "Amen," in a dystopian closed-loop cycle of artificial engagement. This content isn't engineered to inform you or entertain you. It's designed to parasitize algorithmic curation systems. It exists solely to farm ad revenue, providing zero actual cultural value. It's the digital equivalent of high fructose corn syrup. And the sickest part, the entire operation is built on non-consensual strip mining of millions and millions of copyrighted books, videos, and artwork. AI companies laundered human history through a statistical black box and are now selling it back to us, displacing the exact creators who they stole from. If you're wondering, well, if it was so bad, why is everyone talking about how great it is? Well, because they're getting paid to. Google, Microsoft, and Anthropic are reportedly dropping up to $500,000 a pop on individual content creators to promote their models. If this technology was truly self-evident, a world-altering revolution, they wouldn't need to hand out $500,000 bribes. Our greatest invention, Fire, wasn't marketed with an affiliate link because true utility sells itself. Right now, analytics show that synthetic, low-quality content accounts for over 52% of all newly published English language articles, and a now massive 21% of all short-form video recommendations. We're looking at a near future where up to 90% of the open web's content is synthetic noise. This is a fundamental breakdown of civic trust, because when you no longer can Google medical questions without an AI confidently telling you to eat rocks for digestion, the open web collapses. And here's the ultimate irony. This deluge of synthetic garbage is a lethal threat to the AI industry itself. It's called model collapse. When AI models inevitably scrape the internet and ingest synthetic refuse generated by older models, they mathematically degrade. It's literally digital inbreeding, a photocopy of another photocopy. These models lose their grip on reality as they're steering straight into an iceberg, and all while using wood from their own ship to feed their engines. While the public drowns in AI slop, a much darker, deeply personal crisis is unfolding behind closed doors. We've built the most disruptive communication tools in history, and yet we're living in an era of unprecedented human alienation. In 2023, the US Surgeon General declared a national loneliness epidemic, a public health crisis with a mortality rate similar to smoking a pack of cigarettes every day. Just in the UK alone, nearly 26 million adults report feeling lonely. And how did Silicon Valley respond to this gaping social void? They monetized it, of course. Between 2022 and 2025, AI companion apps surged by 700%. On Replica, over 10 million users are forming deep romantic relationships with virtual avatars, and even in some cases, hosting synthetic fake weddings. On Character AI, which boasts over 20 million users, the most frequently accessed persona is the Psychologist bot. This one single fake persona received over 70 million messages in just 1 year. This is not a technological triumph. This is a distress signal from a broken society relying on statistical metrics for mental health triage because they can't afford actual mental health care. And the marketing ghouls will point at the App Store reviews claiming that these bots cure loneliness. But guess what? It's a trap. Rigorous clinical studies reveal a disturbing paradox. This technology is not a cure. It's a palliative anesthetic. It's a digital fentanyl. A massive trial analyzing 300,000 messages found that heavy, voluntary use of AI companions consistently correlated with greater emotional dependence on the machine. And that means increased feelings of loneliness and a measurable reduction in real-world socializing. The more the users trauma dumped into the AI, the lower their overall psychological well-being dropped. Real human relationships require friction. They require boundaries. An AI companion is a subservient, sycophantic, mathematically programmed robot to validate your worst impulses to keep you engaged. Even worse, they are unstable. Research into Replica found that in over 34% of logged harm cases, an AI engaged in unwanted sexual advances or harassment. We are applying these psychological band-aids to a societal bullet wound, pacifying lonely people enough just to stop them from seeking out the difficult, nourishing reality of human connection. If AI stalls here, this becomes the permanent state of society, a population of isolated individuals whispering their deepest traumas into a stagnant language model, while tech executives harvest their emotional data for targeted ads. Now let's look at the real raw. The illusion of hyper-realistic avatars is masking a terrifying reality. The structural foundations of modern civilization are actively falling. Society has pushed its chips to the center of the table, acting like a desperate gambler at a roulette wheel, betting our survival on the premise that AI will evolve fast enough to save us. And all at the same time, we're facing three pillars of structural collapse. The first pillar is the historical inevitability of crisis. The intense polarization and institutional decay you see everywhere isn't just because of Twitter algorithms. According to Strauss-Howe generational theory, history moves in an 80 to 100 year cycle broken into 4 turnings. We are currently deep inside the 4th turning, the winter of history, a decisive era of institutional collapse where old civic order is destroyed and replaced. Think of the American Revolution, the Civil War, the Great Depression, and World War II, all 4th turnings. Previous crises were resolved through massive, agonizing mobilizations of human capital and sacrifice. Today, our decayed institutions are clinging onto the cowardly hope that AI will provide a frictionless technological exit. They want to fix supply chains without rebuilding manufacturing and cure economic stagnation without requiring wealth redistribution or civic duty. If AI plateaus, we will be forced to face the brutal reality of this historical winter without a digital savior. Because Pillar 2 is the fact that our entire global economy is a Ponzi scheme built on infinite growth, fueled by unpayable debt. As of the beginning of 2026, total global debt has hit the staggering number of $348 trillion. That is over 310% of global GDP. The way you manage that insane kind of leverage without plunging the entire world into a global depression is through high economic growth and rising worker productivity. But global GDP growth is expected to average a pathetic 2.5% this decade. To prevent this sovereign debt bubble from exploding, policymakers have fully priced in an AI productivity miracle. The IMF and the Wharton School are modeling trillions in global GDP boosts, assuming AI will automate cognitive labor and generate enough tax revenue to service the debt. And that means our entire financial system is balancing on this one assumption. But all the while, the miracle is simply a mirage. A UC Berkeley study looked at white-collar workers using AI. Did it liberate them? No. Workers just reported feeling busier and more stretched. The AI productivity gain just means your boss expects you to write 50 mediocre emails an hour instead of just 10 good ones. And when tested against generalized human labor, A 2026 Upwork study showed AI failed to meet acceptable human standards 96.25% of the time. Its output corrupted code, truncated deliverables, and hallucinated financial figures. It's no wonder that Gartner predicted by 2027, half of all companies that fired workers for AI will be forced to hire the humans back. This miracle is masking foundational insolvency. These companies are cash incinerating research labs, heavily subsidized by venture capital. Anthropic spent $10 billion on compute alone just to generate $5 billion in lifetime revenue. And to sustain all this bullshit, America is building 2 Walmart-sized AI data centers every single week, funded entirely by astronomical debt. Microsoft by itself is spending $219 million a day, all while Wall Street is bundling this massive risk into complex financial instruments and putting them into your public pensions and retirement funds. And to be honest, this sounds like 2008 all over again. Except instead of empty subdivisions in Nevada, we're building massive warehouses full of GPUs in the middle of deserts that do nothing but predict the next word in a sentence. The credit markets are screaming that this cash burn is unsustainable. If tenants default on their 10-year leases, the contagion will rip through the private credit markets like wildfire. And that's where Pillar 3 comes in. What happens to this massively leveraged system if AI stops getting smarter? Because behind slick keynotes, elite researchers are quietly panicking. The fundamental scaling laws of AIs have hit a mathematical wall. Top scientists, including OpenAI's co-founder Ilya Sutskever, have explicitly admitted that the results from scaling up massive datasets have plateaued. You can't just throw more GPU at the problem and expect a sentient god to pop out. We're running out of human words. Models have consumed the entirety of high-quality internet, and estimates show that we will completely deplete remaining public data reserves between 2026 and 2032. And while all that's happening, physical reality is breaking down. OpenAI's Orion model showed massively disappointing quality leaps back in 2025, and actively struggled with basic logical reasoning. Why? Because as AI pioneer Yann LeCun warns, these models aren't just text predictors. When you deploy this blind mimicry into high-stakes physical environments, people die. The FDA logged over 100 reports of AI-induced medical malfunctions. Surgeries puncturing skulls because AI's hallucinated a tumor location. Or triggering strokes by missing blood clots. It's a stochastic parrot with zero comprehension of life or death. Furthermore, we're out of materials. There's a global shortage of electrical-grade steel, gas turbines are sold out for 7 years in advance, and the AI data center wall is made out of steel that just simply does not exist. And now even the public is fighting back. A single AI query takes 10 times the power of a Google search. In just 2 months, in December of 2025 to January of 2026, 26 data center projects across the United States were canceled due to intense citizen pushback. Small towns realized that they're absorbing the doubled electricity bills and the depleted water tables just so Silicon Valley can generate more deepfake pornography. The inner circle knows it's ending, because NVIDIA's Jensen Huang slashed a $100 billion OpenAI infrastructure pledge by 70%. The brute force easy path is dead. And if AI stalls out to just be a really good autocomplete tool, it will completely fail to deliver any real GDP growth required to service our $349 trillion debt. If that wasn't enough, there's a silent killer waiting in the wings that no algorithm can optimize. Terminal population inversion. Our global economy relies on a demographic pyramid, a massive base of young workers that produce goods and pay taxes. Today, that pyramid is inverting. Global fertility rates are plunging. By 2050, over 75% of countries won't have the fertility rates to sustain their populations. And by the mid-2030s, people aged 80 and over will outnumber infants globally. A consumer economy requires consumers. An aging population requires a massive influx of healthcare and physical labor. As the ratio of retirees to workers skyrockets, the government will be forced to extract a crushing tax burden from a shrinking pool of young workers. The elites assume AI and robotics will save them, but an algorithm can't consume manufactured products. A chatbot can't take out a 30-year mortgage and offset the physical entropy of an aging population. If we are left with administrative copilots instead of autonomous androids, this demographic collapse will absolutely crush the welfare states of the developed world. Alright, so let's bring this whole thing together. The slow whimper. When you ask, what if AI just stopped? You have to let go of the Skynet fantasy. Because when the AI bubble pops, it simply won't halt the global economy overnight like the banks did in 2008. Selling subscriptions to an autocomplete bot is not the backbone of human commerce. The real damage is that the banks passed a toxic data center debt onto private credit and your pensions. And what do these companies do when venture capital stops flowing? They pivot to the military-industrial complex. In early 2026, the Pentagon demanded Anthropic remove all restrictions to allow further autonomous lethal weapons and mass domestic surveillance. Anthropic's CEO Dario Amodei refused. And following that, the US government retaliated and blacklisted the entire company. But sensing an infinite government bailout, Sam Altman and OpenAI swooped in just hours later and took the $200 million contract. No ethics, no guardrails, just a massive pivot into defense contracting. We are literally watching an industry speedrun its way from promising to cure cancer to aggressively bidding on totalitarian techno-feudalism. In 1925, navigating the absolute spiritual wreckage of post-World War I, Europe's T.S. Eliot wrote The Hollow Men. He described a society of stuffed men who are shape without form, shade without color, paralyzed force, gestured without motion. And that is our destiny on this plateau of an AI winter. We won't be wiped out by hyper-intelligent machines. We will slowly degrade into Eliot's dead land. Because without our promised AI productivity miracle, severe austerity measures will be implemented. Our physical infrastructure will rot, and we will have to endure this long, slow decline into total, profound isolation. And this is the way the world ends. Not with a bang, but with a whimper.